Hey folks, there's a lot of smart people out there, some of them even smarter than me, a microscopic YouTuber who frequently forgets to make basic audio corrections. So today I thought we'd talk about one of them's. YoungHoon Kim is a South Korean CEO, doctoral degree holder, alleged holder of the world's highest IQ, and embarrassing right-wing grifter. And today I'd like to give you just a taste of this guy's BS, starting with a disclaimer. I actually do not know if Kim's claim of world's highest IQ person is accurate. This doesn't come after weeks of rigorous, inconclusive research. This comes from the simple fact that I don't currently care to look into this subject in any amount of depth. As a result, in the interest of fairness, this video will operate under the assumption that this claim is 100% true. I will readily accept that Kim has an intelligence quotient of 276, because as you're about to see, that fact is virtually irrelevant. I have little doubt in my mind that YoungHoon Kim is a smart guy, but smart doesn't mean moral, and it certainly doesn't mean honest, and as it turns out, smart, immoral, dishonest people are great at appealing to morons. So let's take a look at some of the things that Kim has said recently and bring to light some of the blatantly manipulative tactics you might have missed if you're the sort of person who instantly trusts anyone with a degree and a penchant for validating your opinions. Kim is a Christian, and he likes to use his perceived authority on all matters of human intelligence to defend his Christianity. His feed is full of tweets like these, making a generic religious statement and signing it off with, "I'm really, really smart, you guys." A few days ago, as if bringing up his IQ every 5 minutes wasn't enough, he posted this edit of himself, which I'm about to force you to watch.
Oops, copyrighted music. Copyrighted music, 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 copyrighted music.
Look, I really have very little problem with Christianity, though I enjoy discussing the subject with my friends. I myself am no longer religious, but I think it's pretty clear in my body of work and general lifestyle that Christianity has had a profound influence on the way that I think. I don't have any desire to trash somebody's fundamental beliefs in this setting, so I'm gonna try to avoid making any Reddit atheist arguments, but hopefully even the Christians watching this agree that this is insane, right? The argument Kim is making here is ultimately an argument from authority, not God's authority, mind you, but his own. He's exalting himself and his claimed intelligence in the form of cringy, self-congratulatory edits in order to win internet points from people of faith. I suppose I'll make this next claim without substantiating it because the people who agree with me will already know what I mean, and the people who disagree are not going to be convinced no matter how I phrase this. Somebody who sincerely views themselves as a follower and child of Christ would never exalt themselves in this way. They would never pretend they believe in salvation because God made them smarter than everybody else. Not only because that's a really stupid argument, but because it flies in the face of Christianity as a belief system. Thankfully, though, Kim has actually recorded himself explaining some of his beliefs in a truly enlightening way. Take, for instance, his explanation for why he believes in the afterlife, which I'm about to show you. Do note that there's obviously going to be a little bit of a language barrier here, but Kim's English is perfectly fine and understandable. If any of you get weird about this in Lay's comments, I will key your car.
Hello everyone, this is highest IQ man YoungHoon Kim from South Korea. In this video, I would like to share my idea, my thoughts about afterlife. I think our consciousness continues beyond death, definitely. Science says that when the brain stops, then our consciousness disappears. You believe this now, but quantum physics says that information never disappears. Never. It only changes in forms. If our consciousness is quantum information, it may continue after the body is gone.
This is a 3.5-minute video, but that's the crux of Kim's argument. quantum information is never destroyed. Therefore, if our consciousness is made up of quantum information, it must continue after death. And this is one of those bullshit science arguments that's used by intelligent or educated people to validate the beliefs of people who have no idea what any of those words meant. Very basically, and apologies if my wording is a little bit imperfect here, I'm a chemist, not a physicist, the concept that Kim is referring to here is the idea that if we know the exact quantum states of every particle in a closed system at some point in time, we should be able to perfectly predict the quantum states of every particle at any other point in time in the past or in the future, meaning that all information is ultimately conserved. If you know everything about where a particle is and how it's behaving, you should be able to accurately determine where it was and how it behaved. What you may have noticed here, however, is that none of this necessitates that our consciousness continues even after all of the physical processes maintaining it have stopped. All that it actually necessitates is that the information required to extrapolate what those processes were is never destroyed. Again, it's totally fine if you have like spiritual beliefs here, but dealing exclusively with the physical world around us, consciousness is a biological process, much like photosynthesis, meiosis, and sweating. And while quantum information about everything involved in each of those processes is conserved, I hope we can agree that none of these processes continue even after they've stopped. This reminds me a little bit of a sermon I was shown when I went to Vacation Bible School as a middle schooler, where Pastor Louis Giglio, I think that's how it's pronounced, tells this long story about science and faith that culminates in him revealing that one important protein in the human body is shaped like a cross, which of course he takes to mean that biology is leaving us like Bible Easter eggs.
Here is a scientific diagram of the laminin cell adhesion molecule that's holding your body together right now, okay? This is what I found right here. No, come on, that's crazy. That's just crazy.
There's definitely a joke in here about how every protein that looks like a jumble of spaghetti is proof of Pastafarianism, but I do actually hate those jokes, and I promised that I wasn't gonna be like that today, so I'm not gonna do it. Just to hammer home really quick how young I am, I remember specifically this VBS being one where one of the youth pastors complained to us about how Macklemore's Can't Hold Us was corrupting our minds. So sorry for being a little baby, I guess. But at least Louis has the excuse that he isn't hinging his argument on how smart he is. The Laminin sermon isn't particularly intelligent, but it comes off as a sincere attempt to explain the world around us through the lens of Christianity, while Kim's video only demonstrates that either he has no clue what he's talking about, which I doubt, or he's counting on you to have no clue what he's talking about and accept what he's saying simply out of a respect for his authority. He pulls the same shtick in his attempts to not only get you to worship Jesus, but God, or Donald Trump. You'll note that the tweet I'm showing you on screen is a retweet because Kim fucking loves retweeting himself. It's easily a top 3 pastime for him, only competing with his love of retweeting people who praise him and his love of telling you his IQ. In this tweet, he claims that people with higher IQs, such as himself, support Donald Trump, and so therefore he supports Don to the death. Now, I could cite research indicating that right-wing beliefs correlate with lower scores on intelligence tests. In fact, I just did that in the description, or I could do something far simpler and point out that this is one of the world's oldest logical fallacies. Kim has zero evidence that a high intelligence quotient correlates with support for Orange Man. Orange Man jokes are still in, right? I haven't been on the internet in like 8 years. If he had any evidence, as the world's smartest boy, he probably would have cited it, you know? What he does have, though, is his perceived authority in the form of his Avengers-level IQ, which anyone familiar with, forgive me for even going here, simple logical principles will recognize as a common fallacy known as the appeal to authority, which I'm realizing now I mentioned earlier in the script. Pretend like that was planned. Kim is only able to justify his claim by telling you to just trust him, because he's got it all figured out. And as much as I hate to tell you this, only a very foolish person would fall for that. No matter how intelligent a person is, their claims about reality need to be justified with reason and evidence. If a person is genuinely intelligent and is demanding you simply agree with them because of that fact, I don't know how else to say this, they're a liar, a huckster, a swindler, a snake oil salesman, or perhaps a grifter. And you can see this in the sorts of things that Kim draws attention to, namely all of the people he retweets incessantly praising him, often using very dumb arguments like, a smart guy agrees with me, so I must be right. Or his highlighting of Jeremy of Geeks and Gamers, yeah, I bet you weren't expecting to see him in this video, who uses the fact that one Trump supporter has a high IQ to argue that Trump supporters in general have high IQs. And I can 100% believe that Jeremy is too stupid to realize why that's a bad argument, but you would think that the world's highest IQ guy would understand the fallacy of composition. Ultimately, Kim's arguments are full of obvious holes and failures that a rational person would either catch before posting or at least correct upon further reflection. He thinks, for instance, that because the Bible only mentions two genders, no others could exist, implying that he also doesn't believe in cars or penicillin, you know, if we take that argument to its logical conclusion. And ultimately, I'm left with the general impression that beyond being smart, YoungHoon Kim is just lazy. He probably knows he's lying unless his ego is legitimately so big he thinks that every one of his thoughts is God-given, but I've seen a fair number of people taking this guy seriously thanks to his claims of superior intelligence, so I felt the need to issue a few corrections. If I had to guess, when the conservatives inevitably find this video, they'll probably jump to the comments with claims of how I'm really dumb or don't have a high enough IQ to understand Rick and Morty, but they won't provide much in the way of evidence for Kim's claims. Again, that's just a guess, but you know that I'm right. Thanks for watching me. Like to me and subscribe this video, and I'll consider posting another one about a week from now.